In this video, we're going to be looking at things that you can and cannot assume by looking at your picture. And then, as the title here shows, we'll be moving into classifying triangles in the next video. But for now, let's talk about things that you can and things that you cannot assume. And when I say this, I mean when you look at a picture, these are things that you know by looking at it, or that you can't know by looking at it unless you have additional information. So things you can assume. Lines are straight. So what this means is if you see a picture and there are lines and they look straight, you can actually assume that they are straight. And a lot of these seem like they're pretty common sense, so that usually helps. Alright, then number 2, if two lines intersect, then they intersect at one point. Okay, so if you see two lines intersecting, you can assume that the spot where they intersect is one point. Points on a line are collinear. So if you have a line and we have a bunch of points on the line, it looks like these points are on that line, so we can in fact assume that they are on the line. And then the last thing that we can assume by looking at a diagram, points in a diagram are coplanar unless drawn in two separate planes. So sometimes we'll have a picture of a plane and it may not be totally obvious that the points are in the same plane, but if it looks like they are, you can assume that they are. So these 4 points would be part of whatever this plane would be. Alright, so those are the 4 things you can assume. Now the things that you cannot assume by looking at a picture. So lines are parallel. You cannot assume lines are parallel unless you are given additional information where you can prove that they're parallel or you know that they're parallel. Next we have lines are perpendicular. You cannot assume lines are perpendicular. So if I draw some lines here and I did the best job I could to make them look perpendicular, I cannot assume that they are perpendicular unless I'm told they are, or if I have that little square tick mark in the corner, then I would know that they're perpendicular. I wouldn't be assuming they're perpendicular because I have information that tells me they are. So unless you have information that tells you they're perpendicular, you cannot assume they are perpendicular. Alright, and then number 3, pairs of angles, segments, or polygons are congruent. We cannot assume that any of these pairs are congruent unless we are given information that tells us they are congruent. So pairs of angles, segments, or polygons cannot be assumed congruent unless they are given or can be proved congruent. Alright, so these are the things that you can and cannot assume. Keep this table handy so you can refer back to it if you need to. Make sure you ask questions if you have any, and we'll see you in the next video.